joined on the Zoom line by clinical and organizational psychologist Kelly McFarlane. Ms. McFarlane, I want to thank you for your time and for coming on this morning. A very needed discussion because SCA, as we know, hours away, days away, and the whole experience, that whole mock exam, lessons, the day itself, it brings on so much anxiety and there is stress that comes with it. Let's get into that discussion this morning and find ways to navigate this most interesting space that we have to go through this dance every single year. Kelly, great to see you and thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Where do we start the discussion, with the children or the parents? Because I wonder sometimes, plenty of the stress, sometimes it comes from right within the household, and the kind of expectation that is put on children at such a young age for this exam.
I'd say let's start with the parents. And the reason for that is some of what you just said, sure. The expectations and the things that we tell children with regards to preparing for something big. But also, I always like to emphasize the importance of modeling. When we go through stressful situations or children go through stressful situations, they learn how to manage stress, how to break problems down, how to solve issues, how to use the functional parts of their brains and how to stay calm and so on based on what they see their parents do in times of stress. So it is, it's always important to express to parents or caregivers, that when the child is having something big and important that's really anxiety provoking and they are having a reaction, we can't match them or we shouldn't match them. We have to be able to regulate our own emotions if we are to expect our children to regulate their emotions.
Indeed, thanks for that. I would imagine trying to put a child through the practice test routine today into tomorrow, really, it makes no sense. I mean, what's the approach? Let's deal with it in real time, today, tomorrow, especially the night before the exam. What's the advice for the parents looking on, grandparents, guardians, and of course the children?
So it's not very likely that the child is going to learn something new to put on the exam the night before the exam after they've been in school for all of these terms, years, and so on, preparing for this exam. What we want to be sure not to do is contribute to burnout. So your child has been studying, working hard, going to school, going to a lot of lessons, talking with their friends about the exam, talking to family members about the exam. And it's very important to understand, realize, remember that rest is equally as important as the studying and the going hard to make sure you have all of the information and all the practice tests done and so on. Trying to rush it at the last minute is not very useful. Even if you do some last minute, night before things, keep it light. Keep it calm. And you have to know your child as well. Some children, they feel comfort in learning and reading, and they're not super anxious and they don't mind doing a little bit of revision. And for other children, they might be feeling a lot of stress just even thinking about the stakes that are placed on them with regards to this exam. And they may just need some time to talk, to relax a little bit, to just lay back and get their minds and their bodies calm and ready for the tomorrow, well, Thursday, but the day after.
Mm-hmm. On the day itself, advice to parents. I know sometimes parents, I guess, it's a full circle moment because here it is, you're telling yourself, but wait, I did common entrance just the other day. I was probably part of the first batch of students for SCA, and now my young one doing the exam. And some parents talk about it's like they're doing the exam all over again, the nerves and the butterflies in the stomach. What's the advice to the parents on the day of the said exam when they drop the child to school and wait for them to wrap things up to pick them up after?
Yeah. Affirm your child, affirm yourself. So start with yourself, right? Affirm yourself. Yes, the stakes may feel high, but this is not the be all and end all of your child's life or yours. There are ways to adapt and move along regardless of the results that your child receives from this exam. So calm yourself, reassure yourself, and then use some of that same calm and reassurance for your child, right? It's very important that you give that to them going into the exam. It's not going to be helpful sending them in jittery and anxious because, anxiety and fear affects the part of the brain that helps us to solve problems and think and articulate and all the things that you want them to remember, to recall even, if they are very anxious or scared or they feel like the stakes are so high or I have to make sure I don't disappoint mommy or mommy's so scared, poor mommy.
Yeah, what do you do? What do you do in a scenario where, let's say, on the morning of the exam, there's an episode, a total episode, a breakdown, bucket of tears, the child is physically shaking. These things, I'm sure, less than more, but it happens. What does a parent or even the child do to come out of that episode?
Yeah. So one of the things that are quick and easy is belly breathing, right? So we belly breathing is like, imagine your belly has a balloon in it and you need to fill it up with air. So belly breathing doesn't mean you're taking a deep breath and your chest is raising. It's your belly that's expanding. And so learning to do some nice calm breaths helps to calm the nervous system and put that part of the brain that I talked about just now back online for them to function. The other thing is allow the child to talk. Allow the child to tell you what they're feeling without you imposing your own worries and stress. So you might need to do some belly breathing yourself and some positive self-talk yourself. And, have a good breakfast. Make sure you've had a good rest. And and at that moment, the most you can do is calm the body, calm the mind with positive words and affirmation. If you're religious, say a prayer, hold your child's hand and say a nice, calm prayer. But keep things as calm as possible and reassure them, hey, today is not the end of your life. Whatever happens, we'll be fine.
Understood. Obviously, you must know when you go into the exam how you would have done. I mean, there is that gut feeling, that intuition that would inform where you think this exam is going, if you're going all the way or if clearly it's one that was a bit shaky. How do we engage in that discussion after? And especially for the children looking on, or if they see this later for the repeat, how do they express that in an authentic and real way? Because sometimes you could tell your parent, hey, yeah, it was fantastic, I hit it out the park, but in your heart of hearts, you know that probably maths or English or some part of it would have, it kind of defeats you then. How do we just express true sentiments? Or, I mean, what's your advice in that regard to bring about that authenticity?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, to parents, don't pressure your children right after the exam to belabor, how did it feel? What did you do? What were the answers? Which questions came if they don't want to talk about it?
So let them engage. Let them engage on their own time.
Let them engage. I mean, it's fine to say, how was it? I mean, that's natural. There's no parent that it'll be hard for you not to do that. But that's fine. See, let them take the lead on that. Give them a couple of days to just relax and release from that. And of course, for kids, talking about it, if it was scary for you, if it was hard for you, and your child wants to talk about it, be that listening, empathetic ear. And this is another reason why it's always good to have multiple people, influences in your child's life. If there's a granny or an auntie or an uncle or a big sister that the child could talk to, because sometimes children, for different reasons, don't want to be honest, as you said, that real conversation with their parents, maybe not right away. But if they have people in their lives that they could talk to kind of just release that stress and that tension and that fear, then that will be great. Create those avenues, let them go visiting whoever they usually talk to, make sure they have that opening to do that.
Yeah. Again, this is a yearly, a yearly occurrence. Every year we find ourselves in this particular place. I'll give you a chance again just to talk directly to the parents, to the students stepping into the exam on Thursday.
Sure. So parents, children, your life is dynamic. You are dynamic. There are so many beautiful things about you. There are so many talents that you have. This exam is important, but it's not the be all and end all of your life or your future. You've worked hard to get to standard 5, to get where you are and to be able to qualify to even do this exam. And regardless of how you perform, your life will be fine. So just be calm, reassure yourself, remember that you are amazing, and take some nice deep breaths, and all will be well.
Yeah, well said. I must ask before we wrap things up. We live in a different time. I guess when we were going to school, we had that particular task. You go, you come home. We find ourselves where students, especially that scenario that happened recently, where the young man, the boy, was killed there in Laventille, and his schoolmates. Remember, he was carded to do the exam. He was on his way to the exam, and of course that will never happen. In a scenario like that, where you have classmates who are going into exam and one of your colleagues, one of your friends from since standard 1, not there anymore, or somebody who would have gone through a personal traumatic experience, whether it be in the community, the loss of a loved one, how do we treat with that child going into the exam? Or is it a scenario where sometimes, if it's really extreme, probably they should forfeit and go on and probably tackle it the next year? What's your advice in a scenario like that?
Yeah, we need to know and be really aware of where your child is at if they experience something like that. Is there trauma, based on their connection to the incident? Are they still grieving? Whether or not they should forfeit, is really based on, have they been seeing a counselor, a psychologist, and are they at a point whereby they can't, because of their emotional distress, function very well in an exam, and they may need such an accommodation. Children tend to be quite resilient, just in nature, by their nature, but we also do need to be aware of what they're experiencing, as they may not always know how to articulate their grief, their pain, their hurt, their anxiety. And this is why, if your child has experienced something like that, where they've lost friends or a friend that was meaningful to them, it is important to have that space for that child to be able to talk, so that you know where they are mentally. And if it's not with you, with some other trusted adult that could help to sort of assess whether they're doing okay. And if they need that help, they should get that help either from the guidance counselor in school, or you can, find a psychologist and have them speak to that psychologist and work through their grief.
Understood. And I want to thank you, because that was something, even though I know we wrap things up, that came to mind towards the very end, because I know there are students going into this exam with across the carry, lots going on, whether it's in the community, in their family. I've learned via this show that yes, children do indeed, they are stressed out, and some people might say, well, it's a child, and what they might not bills to pay. Listen, it's not even about bills, it's about what they have seen, what they've been exposed to, and what their lived reality is, sometimes on a daily basis. So I'm happy that you're able to share.
Can I say something quickly to that? Because it's something we hear a lot, what they have to be stressed about. Children are humans, and they have a functioning brain just like we do. And as a matter of fact, their brain is less developed and their experiences are far less. So they are less equipped to deal with stress effectively. And because they have a normal brain that functions the same way your brain does, they are very prone and likely and able to experience a range of emotions and a range of experiences, nervous system experiences, including stress. They all have adrenaline, they all have cortisol, they have all of these things flowing through their bodies just like us. The same things may not stress them out that stress you out, but any normal child is very able and capable of feeling stressed, depressed, anxious, all of these things. It may not be for bills, but it might be for something very important based on their developmental stage. And that's just a natural process. So I just thought I'd just stick something in there as you brought that up.
No, of course, well said, because you see it's a learning curve, and that's why discussions and conversations like what we're having here is so important, because there would have been that school of thought where people put children in a bracket that, the small, they will, what they know about stress. But as you rightfully said, living, understanding what's happening. Many are very aware, and it could take a toll, and that's why professionals like yourself and others are around guidance counselors. I mean, I remember in Form 1, I used to go speak to my guidance counselor. I had little issues, at least with bullying and stuff in the school, and I must say her role and function was such an important one, because she brought a level of calm, and I was able to now navigate from that Standard 5 going into Form 1. And I think we should have another discussion, because that in itself is a whole different experience, coming out of the sanctuary and safety and the innocence of primary school and stepping in at 12 and 11. I was 11 going into big school, and your eyes open to what's going on here. So let's promise each other to have that discussion closer to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Kelly McFarlane, thank you so much, and I appreciate your time and advice this morning.
Okay.
So that's psychologist, clinical and organizational psychologist, Kelly McFarlane, touching base with us on this Tuesday morning. It's not Monday, it's Tuesday. That's right. Let's take a pause, and we come back with a special investigative report as we work our way to the 7 o'clock hour.